Stagger it for a couple seconds. 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not like we're going live to an actual live audience. I never get live audiences for Stagger it for a couple seconds. Okay, we're good. We're live. Hello, everyone. We're back.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So to explain to the few people who are watching, we had plans to do a completely different stream today. A fun stream. A stream we would have loved. A stream Squasher was excited for.
You mean the stream where you torture me about the fundamentals of Kingdom Hearts lore?
Yes, and we're still going to do that. Just not this month.
Oh, dear God.
We're not doing that this month. We're actually going to do something far worse. Because, let me give you the backstory. So, over the past 3 days, and trust me, this all leads up to what we're doing. Over the past 3 days, a YouTuber named the Aristocratic Spoon was in an argument with another YouTuber named the Almighty Lolly, in which Spoon was defending a fucking child rapist named Andrew Tate. And he kept going on and getting angrier and angrier every time Lolly explained that he did not want to defend a child rapist like Spoon is, and he is questioning Spoon's moral character about defending this child rapist. To the point where he was like, if his message is so important, what the hell is his message? To which Spoon just kept getting angrier and angrier. Now, how this ties in is I was watching this entire thread, and someone posted in the thread that, hey, all these culture warrior grifters seem to be just doing this thing for outrage now, and he showed an example of the Lotus Eaters and their recent premium podcast on the Star Wars Prequels, where they accused Yoda of being a pedophile and said the Empire did absolutely nothing wrong.
Basically, they didn't learn anything from the last time Sargon did a video on this, which, if you're at all familiar with his channel, me and Koopa did absolutely rip to shreds.
Uh-huh.
Great.
So to make a long story short, Spoon is a pedophile, and apparently now he's liking and retweeting actual Nazi shit, and Sargon is still a retard.
Wonderful. Now, guys, I understand you guys watched this ahead of time. I didn't. I'm kind of going into this blind. But
I didn't.
You told me
I won as well.
I'm the only
there's
one.
a very good chance I'm going to lose my shit with
Yes,
this
you will.
because of how terrible it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We all are. We suffer together. Except for Squasher. He got a sneak preview.
Okay.
He was our guinea pig. our guinea orc.
I'm thinking I'm the only one that will be Tranquil Fury instead.
I'm just going to be resigned. I'm just going to be resigned to this stupidity.
So, without further ado, I shall bring up. We have a watch together set up, and we're going to do this EFAP style, as in we're going to talk over everything they say and assume their points. And if something comes up that they brought up that we talked over, we're going to pretend it didn't happen because we're always right and you're always wrong. Your likes and opinions are subjective, and ours are objective. Welcome to EFAP.
Wonderful.
So, is the watch together going live on the? Okay, it is. It was on black screen. That's because.
Before we begin, that has got to be the worst suit combinations I've ever seen.
Well, you're talking about.
Sargon's color combination is utter crap. I don't know who the guy is in red, but that's utter crap. Who wears beige?
Oh
what
my
kind of dark bluish gray is that? This is terrible.
Yeah,
the tackiest suits I've ever seen.
Tracer, let me put it to you like this: you're not the first person who's made fun of Sargon's suits. Are you going to compare him to an Applebee's waiter?
Yes, I think I am.
You're not the first one to do that either.
Later.
Alright. So, unfortunately, because this entire stream is put behind a premium paywall, we're not going to be able to discuss their whole thing. However, they put up little bits and pieces of this little stream that they had as previews. That's what we're going to be discussing. If they say in the full stream that, hey, we're just bullshitting you guys, we actually love the Jedi, we wouldn't have been able to see it. None of us are going to pay money for this bullshit.
And take notice of the fact that this is a premium stream and this is clearly a rage bait video. That should kind of tell you why they're actually making this.
Yep. So, for most of us, this is going to be our first time. I am going to... It's not messing it up on the... it is on the OBS, but... So I can have my... Let me fix it up on the OBS real quick. Because I want to both watch it and have it available for my...
Welcome, Keck.
Welcome, Keck. I want to have my my audio board available, so because I have a feeling I am going to need this button a lot. Heresy! Followed by this button.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
And especially this button.
You are an idiot!
I might throw in one of these.
Failure!
One of these.
I will send you to Jesus.
And one of these.
I can smell the failure!
That alone might make this at least somewhat bearable.
It's that bad, huh?
Don't worry, between me and Keck, we have a lot of soundboards, and we're going to be using them with extreme prejudice.
All right.
I'll say this. Some of the things they will say, specifically about the Republic, I have no issue with, for the most part.
Is there a way I can make the video bigger?
That being said, it's all overshadowed by everything else that's fucking stupid. So
Okay, we're in the mobile version.
Do they even recognize that there's actually 3 different canons?
they don't differentiate any canon, so
Alright, let me just adjust this. There we go. There's going to be little bits showing my bookmarks, and I'm afraid that's going to reveal not the Slaneshi book fucking bullshit I keep on there, but like future videos I want to keep secret. I have no problems with people seeing the general. It's the future videos. I don't want people getting sneak previews of what's coming next. All right, we ready?
I'm ready. I'm on Watch Together.
I might have an aneurysm. Let's see.
they give me strength.
Let me swap
Wait.
that around. I usually keep Discord on the left. No, Discord on the right. Okay, it's fine on the OBS. All right.
It might interest you to know that The Phantom Menace was
can
actually
you
the
turn up
original
the-
script for the first Star Wars film.
I beg your pardon.
Can you turn up the volume just a bit? I can barely hear them.
Volume's on your end. The volume is always on
Okay.
the user side end.
Alright, let's do it again. Proceed.
It might interest you to know that The Phantom Menace was actually the original script for the first Star Wars film.
Oh, I can believe.
I did
No,
not know
it
that.
wasn't.
No, that's wrong, huh?
We're 5 seconds
we have-
in, and I already have to call someone an idiot.
Look, provide some context. There were multiple scripts, but the original script, as in the very first script that was ever made for Star Wars, was called The Adventures of, I think it was Deke Starkiller? I think that was his
It
name?
was Deke or
Yes.
it was either Deke or Anakin Starkiller, and it was based out of the Journal of the Wills.
Yes.
Even
Which
Link's
had
card is
elements of the Phantom Menace, but also had a lot of elements from all the other Star Wars movies. The original script was not the Phantom Menace.
So
Okay.
we're just for reference, we have 2 of these videos. We're only 5 seconds in, and already.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
I'm
Yeah,
regretting
then
every decision that has led me up to this point. How can you get something so wrong and say something that's so much of a lie so blatantly?
I can smell the failure.
Jesus
say
Christ.
I'm not very familiar with the history of the making of Star Wars.
I've been watching Star Wars making of history videos for the last week. Coincidentally, in preparation for this.
I'm familiar enough that I can reference it from memory.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
All right. 5 seconds in, already they're wrong.
It might interest you to know that The Phantom Menace was actually the original script for the first Star Wars film.
Oh, I can believe
That
it.
he wrote in 1975.
I feel like I've heard that somewhere before, but you just
1973.
unlocked that memory for me.
Yes.
Okay, so what?
Just keep going, keep going.
So, if anything, he'd reversed back to his original position.
Sure.
Back before he wrote the first one. Dan, what did you make of it when you first saw it?
Well, I was a little bit more of a fan, and actually, when they knew that they were going to be doing the deal and doing the sequels, they brought back the original.
He means
set of
prequels,
films
but
to the
whatever.
cinema beforehand. So I'd gone and watched them all at the cinema beforehand. So I was already warmed up to this. Then the Phantom Menace came out, and it was a bit woo, wasn't it? I mean, it's a bit, it didn't quite sort of punch through. It was a lot more political, and I think it's one of those films that's better when you reflect on it backwards rather than you're sat there watching it, because you're right, it is a clunky film to watch. The dialogue is clunky.
Clunkier than Nerf Herder.
Like, here's something people have to understand. A lot of the dialogue that we see in the prequels was dialogue that we saw in the original trilogy. There's one major difference. About 20% of the lines in the movies from the original trilogy were ad-libbed by the actors. Those are the most memorable lines that people always remember when watching these films. If you suppress that, though, and you focus just on the rest of the dialogue, there's not much of a difference.
Mm-hmm. It's the same. Like I said this to Tracer earlier when I was going over one of the videos I was watching to prepare for this. Star Wars is not so much a movie as it's what 40K originally was. It's a playlist of all of George Lucas's favorite things, mostly movies. He was a massive cinephile. And back in the 70s, being a massive cinephile means being into a lot of bullshit that's obscure nowadays. Samurai movies, old John Wayne movies, fucking artsy-fartsy films from fucking Eastern Europe, all of that stuff.
Flash Gordon.
Yeah, Flash. People reference Flash Gordon, but like that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like all across all 6 movies, and not the sequels, because the sequels stand out, and this is the thing that makes them stand out and makes you realize these aren't Star Wars movies. This is someone wearing a mask of Star Wars. You get the same references, you get the same callbacks. He references the same sources that he did in the original trilogy. He makes references with the same lines that are lines ad-libbed from, other things that he's seen. The cinematography is the same across all 6 movies. The editing is the same across all 6 movies. While George didn't exclusively edit the original trilogy, and he wasn't the exclusive director, he was consistently a director and an editor on all 6 movies. And like you see his vision across all 6 movies. That's why the sequel trilogy is as soulless as it is, because it's missing the thing that makes Star Wars, and that's George Lucas.
I'm also going to say this. The sequel trilogy, like you said, doesn't have any of that because all it wants to do is reference Star Wars rather than reference the things that came before. Mandalorian, other TV shows like that, they do attempt the same thing that Lucas does, go back, reference some things that he watched to mixed results. It really depends upon who's running it. Who is the director, who's the writer, what have you, if they can truly understand not just, you made a funny reference, but if they understand why the reference was made.
And like This is the thing that separates Star Wars from not Star Wars, because like it or not, Star Wars is a story created and directed by George Lucas. The problem that people have with the Star Wars prequels is that it was a movie created and directed by George Lucas. Like, George Lucas didn't rape your childhood. It's his movie. It's his story. It's his setting. If you don't like it, well, you can kiss his ass then. And that's, like, that entitlement was something that a lot of, super nerds you would see with the release of the prequels were having, but by and large, the general audiences loved the prequels. It was only the entitled super nerds who were angry, and eventually one of them made the character of Mr. Plinkett, and everyone started copying him.
Yeah, here's the thing. The thing about the prequels that sort of makes it a bit different than the original trilogy, and I'll make this quick, but I know we're kind of running on time here, is when the original trilogy came out, the ones who pretty much liked it the most was Generation X. It was the kids who were born in the early 70s, late 60s. I know because my dad was one of them. They're the ones who really enjoy the Star Wars movies. The previous generations, Greatest Generation, Silent Generation, the Baby Boomers, more or less did not like these movies. In fact, they made a running gag about that from That 70s Show with Eric Foreman's dad, Red, despising Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Because they just see it as crappy kid stuff. Going into the prequel, though, that was completely changed, because Generation X would then raise partly the millennials, but more so our generation, Generation Z. Whereas the millennials, they grow up in the 90s, they kind of grow up with sort of the expanded universe, they sort of grow up after the fact, but kind of when Star Wars is sort of expanding itself out and making new stuff, right? All these things contributed to what I would call a mixed generational reaction to the prequels. It's not just one generation this time, it's 4. And each one has a completely different takeaway. People who are born my age or younger loved these movies because we grew up with them. But millennials specifically, kind of that 90s crowd, they're the biggest ones who despise the prequels. Plinkett himself was kind of straddling the line between a millennial and a Generation X. What is the age group of everybody in this video?
They're boomers.
Generation X.
Kind of straddling the line between Generation X and the millennials. Every single person here was born late 80s to early 90s, with possibly the exception of Sarga.
As a millennial myself, part of the reason for this is a lot of people got in their heads that what happened. Yet people assume what Anakin was like when he was a kid, even though it was unrealistic.
Yeah, a lot of people had the idea of Anakin Skywalker that he was a twisted, sociopathic psychopath who ripped the wings off butterflies before he became Darth Vader. And that's like, you guys did see Return of the Jedi, right?
They don't care.
No.
That brings me to the...
my generation is horrible.
You're the generation responsible for ever since Hot Topic and Shadow the Hedgehog.
Hey, Shadow was a good thing. I will claim Shadow.
Let's get... Hey, Tracer, you were saying?
I was just I'm gonna make this quick because we're only a minute in. Additional problem. You had about a 20-year time gap between the movies. Between the original to the prequel, that's a lot of anticipation to sort of build up. And nobody really knew what they were expecting, what they were going to get. They just figured, it's more Star Wars. So instead of going in there with, tempered expectations, they go in there with, this is going to be the second coming of Christ, basically. It's going to be so amazing. And when you build something up to that extreme, it's never going to be as good as you think it is.
I remember it basically is what happened with The Force Awakens. Remember when the craze around that whole thing.
Oh, I still remember that.
Yup. I remember it too.
All right, let's continue.
I think it's one of those films that's better when you reflect on it backwards rather than you're sat there watching it. Because you're right, it is a clunky film to watch, and the dialogue is clunky. I loved Attack of the Clones, the second one, and the third one was still pretty good.
You liked Attack of the Clones? Wow.
Okay, pause.
I did.
Attack of the Clones, why it is the weakest of the prequels, it is good on its own. Like, he's not completely lost to me right now. He's winning a bit of brownie points.
Like, I don't dislike Attack of the Clones, but every single complaint that he has can be found in Attack of the Clones. Not so much the Phantom Menace. Mm-hmm. Like, the only objective thing you could find wrong with the Phantom Menace is maybe Jar Jar. But that's about it. And even then, you know, being a grown-ass man now, I'm like...
I love Jar Jar.
Not that bad. Jar Jar's there to appeal to kids.
Jar Jar is based. He's the greatest Star Wars character ever created.
I mean, I should know. Like, I used to teach kids, and I had kids who genuinely liked Jar Jar. And it's taken me this long to realize why.
Like, I love Jar Jar. I kid you not, when... Part of the reason why I loved Phantom Menace as a kid was, in the OT, the character I attached to wasn't Luke or Han, it was Obi-Wan. So I was excited, you know, to learn the past of Obi-Wan. And I like Jar Jar. You know, so it worked on me.
Alright, let's continue.
Rather than you're sat there watching it. Because you're right, it is a clunky film to watch, and the dialogue is clunky. I loved Attack of the Clones, the second one, and the third one was still pretty good. So overall, I did quite like them. But actually, I think there is a bit of a masterpiece there with the political story.
Great.
Because when you read, you know, between the lines as to what was going on, I mean, there is a whole thing about the child safeguarding issues around Yoda, which I do want to come.
What?
Oh no.
Okay, keep
Well,
going.
we are a minute in, and I'm already very angry.
Let's hear what the idiot has to say.
Because look, he's got thousands of Jedi Masters in there. He's the head of the Order, who could be training those kids, and he's like, no, leave that to me. I'm doing it. And he's got this whole dungeon of little boys down there.
Damn it.
Are you stupid?
I told you guys this was gonna suck.
Okay, is now a good time to mention that the Church of England has raped far and away more children than the Catholics ever have, or the fact that all of the woke shit is being pushed by the COE, or the fact that all of the COE all comes back to is a fucking degenerate pervert who wanted to divorce his wife for no good reason because he couldn't keep it in his pants.
What does that have to do with anything?
Because they're British, Swords. Because they're British.
Like, Yoda, like, is one of the many Jedi that trained the youngling. Not the only one.
But Swords, he's the only one we see on screen doing it, therefore he must be the only one. People are retards.
Yeah.
Tracer, are you seething with anger right now?
And plus, how did he get dungeoned from any of that? It was a class.
It was a fucking classroom, a very well lit classroom.
Well, like, not even well
to the outside, to the outside world.
And nice looking, like it's directly supposed to be like a direct comparison to the same lesson Obi-Wan taught Luke, with the same exact ball and everything.
One guy on my Twitter said this podcast wasn't going to be that bad. It's just some lads shit talking, and it's like, I think Tracer left. oh my god, we killed Tracer.
I think he might have lost power.
Possible.
Oh.
It was so bad that Tracer had to go offline. But this is you would see these things referenced as jokes, and this is why I keep bringing up fucking Red Letter Media, Mr. Plinkett, because Plinkett made these same jokes in his fucking reviews.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Elon, my I'm trying to think here. My Starlink, I got heavy winds, got knocked over. That's why my internet went out. So
I thought that was pure rage. Anyway.
No.
Anyway, as
so
we're
what
still.
I was saying before I got kicked off was he's talking about, Yoda's training all these kids. And I'm like, are you referencing the scene where he's teaching these kids how to block basic blaster bolts?
Yes, he is.
Well, they're armed with training sabers. At that, yeah.
And before you got back, I was going off like Plinkett made these exact same jokes in his reviews, and we know the quality of his reviews. We've seen his reviews firsthand, and we've seen reactions to his reviews, and it's nothing but subjective nitpicks and fucking rape jokes and things that just paint the heroes as villains and villains as heroes constantly. And like every other fucking criticism of the prequels that is online today, it's just referencing back to Red Letter Media. It's just referencing back to Plinkett. As if Plinkett is pulling their fucking puppet strings. And it's like, do you guys have an opinion of your own?
No, they're millennials.
Of course. And people wonder why I don't like Sargon anymore.
Okay, continue. Let's hear what he has to say.
Look, he's got thousands of Jedi Masters in there. He's the head of the Order, who could be training those kids, and he's like, no, leave that to me. I'm doing it. And he's got this whole dungeon of little boys down there. There's little Yoda sex chairs going around the outside. And even when Anakin gets there, he's like, no, these kids can't be saved. They're too damaged at this point. I mean,
you're justifying the murder of younglings. Where do you get off? Okay, no, really, where do you get off?
If we go by his logic, then we should disband the public education system, elementary, kindergarten, even daycare, because there are millions and millions of parents that could be teaching the kids, and we shouldn't be having these single teachers teach these kids.
I mean, unironically, that sounds pretty based, but...
Brother, do you really want to go to work and do all that and also have to put your kid through all the stuff you normally would have at daycare or kindergarten?
Let me put it to you like this. I'm one of those crazy assholes who wants to completely disband public education and bring back homeschooling.
Homeschooling is still around.
I'm one of the guys, buddy, who teaches, or well, at least did teach, homeschoolers. They're nuts. You need public education. I'm sorry, it just is.
But no, like what this guy is.
I have a 2-hour rant about why homeschooling at the end of the day fundamentally screws up kids. But
okay, but we're not going to do that because this guy isn't talking about homeschooling. He's talking about the scene in Revenge of the Sith where Anakin murders the younglings and is trying to justify the murder of the younglings.
Proceed.
Where does this fucking guy get off?
Okay, so let's break it down.
Okay.
His statement is what he's accusing Yoda of is that Obi-Wan wants to go to the Jedi Temple and search for survivors, and Yoda says not to because It's
So
surrounded,
you
by
overthink. These guys didn't actually watch the movies. They're not talking about that. They're just talking about the clips and scenes and memes that became popular.
You have, for the sake of the argument, you have to give the benefit of the doubt. It is only fair.
Look, I can answer why Yoda is training all of the younglings himself personally. And it's down to two factors. One, in real life, and two, in universe. In real life, it's to provide an explanation for the line in the original trilogy. You will learn from the one who taught me, Master Yoda. So, because Obi-Wan's actual master is Qui-Gon, we have to provide some kind of explanation behind, well, what do they mean by that? So that's the real-life one. The in-universe one is very simple. Yoda wants to provide a standardized training system for every single youngling, so they have the same fundamental skills when they exit his training before they are passed on to then be instructed by a master properly. So that way everyone has a baseline, they have a basic baseline of abilities and skills. So it's not a case of, one master neglected to train his students on one thing or another. Like, for example, so you got Dooku, he is a fencer, right? Well, he might prioritize being a fencer over being able to block blaster bolts, for example. But if you have the fundamentals already trained into you, that's not so much of a problem.
For the second accusation, as Yoda points out, they turned the Jedi Temple into a trap to attract more Jedi to kill outright, which they disabled and then basically set up a transmission to instead warn Jedi away. And Yoda argues that the best use of their time and resources is to try to cut off the snake at its head, because if they can kill Palpatine and Anakin before they can gain the power to take over the Republic, they can still save the Republic and all the people within it.
I don't remember where that guy said anything about that, but let's continue the video.
Well, he's accusing Yoda of not caring to look for survivors at the Jedi Temple. That's what he was arguing for his second point.
And even when Anakin gets there, he's like, no, these kids can't be saved. They're too damaged at this point. I mean, I'll come back to it, right? But there's so many. And don't even get me started on what they were doing to Padme before she became a queen.
What?
He's referring to a deleted scene where apparently Padme talks about how when she became queen, or just before she became queen, she had a romantic relationship with an older man.
But that has nothing to do with Yoda.
No, there was a kid her age. His name was Pablo. I'm not kidding. He was Pablo, and he was studying to become an engineer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but the thing is, that scene has nothing to do with Yoda. At all.
It'll tie into what they say about the Republic later on, though. So.
Okay, continue.
I'll come back to it, right? But there's so many. And don't even get me started on what they were doing to Padme before she became a queen. If you watch the deleted scenes, I'm telling you, it's rough. But it's a.
You realize that Shaak Ti was killed in the deleted scenes, but then appears in the.
About to say that.
But then she appears in the Legends novels, having died a different way. She appears in The Force Unleashed, having died a different way. You've realized deleted scenes are deleted; they're not canon, right?
They're subject to be canon or discarded as the needs permit, basically.
Yeah, they don't care.
Not canon.
These people don't care that they're not canon. They're going to use them anyway because they were originally in the movie before they got deleted.
I got such a headache.
That's their argument.
All right, keep going.
Wonderful analogy of how politics actually work when you read between the lines.
What, that your capital city is run by... Ring? Well, it's a really good analogy of politics.
I will say, to second your point...
Of all the things that the Republic is corrupt of, they never mention pedophile ring.
They're referring to the Jedi Order.
I know, but there's also the fact they're also going to refer to the politicians as well, but maybe it happened, but it's never explicitly brought up. So, you know.
And as you stated before, Pablo was the same age as Padme.
This is so, and we wonder why this guy hangs out with someone who's completely bad faith like Deb Short Fat Otaku. Because when it comes to Star Wars, Sargon 2 is completely bad faith. He's sitting next to Harry Robinson, who is also bad faith, who argued that Abraham Lincoln was a tyrant and that Martin Luther King Jr. was a communist, something that's only ever been cited by the CIA, who killed Martin Luther King Jr.
Who had a vested interest in discrediting him.
Yeah. And people wonder why I don't like the Lotus Eaters.
Before we continue, Koopa, I know who Sargon is. I don't know who any of the other people are. Can you explain to me who they are?
They're basically, this is the Lotus Eaters pod. This is his news network. The one on his immediate right, which is to our left, is Harry Robinson. He's the one who hates Lincoln and MLK because black man bad, and that sounds based. I believe the one in the tweed jacket is with the glasses is Colin Tomlinson. And from what I remember, he thinks the gunpowder plot did absolutely nothing wrong, and is like a hardcore Irish Catholic. The other two, I don't know who they are.
Anyways,
okay.
It's an example to be careful of the company.
Like the other two were probably hired on after I stopped watching.
Probably. All right, let's see what these idiots have to say.
On the right, on the writing card.
Why is Watch Together doing this to me?
That's a really good analogy.
Whoever's pressing the stop button, please stop.
That's a really good analogy of politics.
I will say, to second your point on the writing, Carl, for the Phantom Menace in particular, because I watched it again about a month ago, there's an emotional distance in the story in the Phantom Menace. It's very hard to get emotionally invested within the characters itself. However, I think that one thing that's important is that for some reason...
One sec. I went to go see this. I was like 2 years old at the time, so I don't remember, but I do remember this, that my father told me, and that Mando even told me, from when his family watched it. Every single person in the theaters reacted the exact same way Obi-Wan did when Qui-Gon was killed.
Yeah, this is just more millennial nihilism.
To be fair, he's also going to bring up the whole thing. I think what he's referencing is there's a distance between kind of the whole plot line, at least it feels like, because if you think about the Phantom Menace and how the prequel trilogy is structured, you had the Phantom Menace and then Attack of the Clones, and that's like 10 years separating the two. So I think that's what he's talking about. It's just not coming out very well, but you'll see when you continue.
Proceed.
Emotionally invested within the characters itself. However, I think that one thing that's important is that for some reason there's these people who do this Star Wars thing called the Machete Order, right, where they watch the films by cutting off the Phantom Menace at the beginning.
Citation needed. Which fans?
That's an actual thing. That's called the machete method.
It is, but I don't recommend doing it.
How many of the fans do that?
I don't know. But
exactly.
It is a thing, so...
I've heard of it. It's people who don't really like the prequels to begin with.
So yeah, Plinkett fans, got it.
I've also heard of another version of the Machete Order, which is basically you watch 4, 5, you go back to 1, 2, 3, and then you watch 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard
Personally-
that one too.
Personally, I'm like, why? Oh, because we need to preserve the secret of Darth Vader as Anakin. Like, I'm sorry, every single kid nowadays knows that. It's not a shock anymore. It's pop culture.
Yeah. You would only do that if it's like I've heard some people justify it as like a explanation for. So basically, what you're doing is you're just going back and watching the historical archives before you go back to to finish the rest of Luke's journey, and it's like it justifies like the passage of time for him to train up, which you don't really need anyway. It's a year between the two films anyway, so.
Like, personally, me and my folks, we've always watched it in chronological order: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can throw in, the micro series, if you're in the mood. If you have the space of time, you could, in theory, throw in TCW. That's if you want to do that. You could throw in some of the movies from even the Disney canon if you like them, like movies like Rogue One or Solo.
I only recommend Rogue One.
Same here.
I like Solo. Is it the best movie? No, but I like it. So
my favorite version of the Solo story is the Han Solo trilogy. So.
Same here. I read that as a teenager. I loved it.
It's a good series, Tracer.
Yes.
I recommend it if you were ever in the mood.
fair enough. But Koopa,
you're an original, aren't you?
All right.
Look, the point is, the Jedi Order is kind of stupid. Just watch the damn thing in sequential order. Proceed.
And starting with Attack of the Clones, because they go, oh, why do we need Anakin as a kid? Why do we need, it feels quite disconnected from the Attack of the Clones and from Revenge of the Sith.
As a full
this is what
trilogy, they say
I can
that
see
it
you
doesn't
wincing.
have many plot points
Okay,
that carry
now,
on into the second.
Okay, I get what he's saying, but the thing is, it's important to know where Anakin came from. It's important to understand he had to leave his mother, he grew up in slavery, he grew up in the shadow of Republic complacency and incompetence. All these things, while maybe not well presented, are fundamental to the reason why he becomes Darth Vader.
Also, it explains why, the awkwardness between his dating life with Padme.
Before we continue, somebody in the chat said this. Auxurius, I think his name is how you pronounce his name. I just want to say that one of these guys had a problem with Hot Fuzz demonizing the townspeople for wanting to keep their town's character by murdering them. Okay. so that's a stupid thing to get hung up on. That film is funny and great.
Have these people never dealt with Community Watch or any kind of community social gathering? You're stupid, and they're always full of dumb old people who want to control everything you do. There's even a case that happened, in North Carolina, where a 90-year-old veteran had to go to court with these people because they had a problem with him raising the American flag, which he'd been doing for 20 years.
Yep.
And the reason why they had a problem with it was because they felt it looked tacky and it took away from the property value.
Yeah, all Hot Fuzz is basically the police character dealing with those people on steroids with a murder conspiracy.
Seeing how easily they missed the point of the Star Wars prequels, it does not surprise me they missed the point of a simple little fucking comedy like Hot Fuzz.
Also, I would say that Hot Fuzz also kind of demonizes city police consistently getting in the way of good police work because they don't want to look bad.
You okay?
I mean,
yeah, I'm just joking on something.
The British police nowadays fucking suck, so.
Yeah. I love nothing more than to have a police department full of nothing but Sergeant Nicholas Angels. Because it means there would be no more crime.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, it'd probably mean I wouldn't be able to speed anymore, but hey, if no one else is speeding, I'm okay with that.
That's fair.
All right.
To get back to Anakin's in the Phantom Menace, though, it sets up also a lot of the parallels between him and Luke. That Luke finds, like, without the Phantom Menace, the reasoning, like, while yes, the OT works on its own, you lose a lot of the strength of the sexology. Is that how you say it?
Saga.
From how, Luke comes to see good in his father.
Because we saw what he was before Palpatine got his hooks into it.
Yeah.
And what was he? He was a kid who dreamed of becoming a hero and freeing slaves.
And then the real world bit him in the ass.
And he became the male fist of a slave-run empire.
Yep.
And you see the Force's plan for Anakin in The Phantom Menace. And that's why the song is literally called Duel of the Fates. You have the Force wanting Qui-Gon to raise Anakin. And then you have Palpatine, wanting Darth Maul to kill Qui-Gon so he can basically corrupt the boy.
It gets even sadder if you read Plagueis, which the final act of Plagueis ends with the Phantom Menace from his perspective, and Plagueis is freaking out about Anakin because, oh shit, the thing I did all those years ago resulted in this boy, and he is our doom. Qui-Gon is the key; he must be killed, basically. So. Yeah. He just goes completely mad. It's sad. And then Palpatine kills him in his sleep. Go ahead.
I was just saying,
oh, it's messing up again?
No, that's me trying to continue the stream.
Okay.
At the beginning and starting with Attack of the Clones, because they go, oh, why do we need Anakin as a kid? Why do we need, it feels quite disconnected from the Attack of the Clones and from Revenge of the Sith.
As a full trilogy, they say that it doesn't have many plot points that carry on into the second.
I can see you wincing on it. This is just what they argue. This isn't my position. But I would argue that actually Phantom Menace is a fundamentally important film. Particularly, I'm not saying he's the best written character, but fundamentally Qui-Gon Jinn is a really important character because he represents the ideal of what a Jedi is supposed to be, that he's supposed to trust in.
It's the first thing we can agree with this guy.
Yep, I'll give him credit. He does at least somewhat get it.
You had 5 knocks, but you got 1 right. Good job.
Oh, trust me, it's not going to get it. After this, it's going to plummet downhill from here.
we've been streaming for almost an hour and have only gotten 3 minutes in, and we're not even at the bad part yet.
Yeah.
She's supposed to.
I want to make a deal. No matter what they say, let's not talk over them or talk at all until the least 5-minute mark.
Okay.
Got it.
Trust in the higher power of the universe, whereas you look at all the other Jedi like Yoda and Mace Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and Obi-Wan falls to us eventually as well by sitting on the Jedi Council that become so institutionally captured in a way that they become simply a puppet of the Republic's regime that eventually, and Qui-Gon is above all of this, so I think it's fundamental that you see firsthand how a Jedi should be, and then you get 2 films of showing every way that the other Jedi in the story fail.
The 2 independent thinkers was Dooku and Qui-Gon. And Qui-Gon they pushed to the side. There was frequent references that he should have been on the Jedi Council for ability and skill and stuff, but he got pushed to the side. And Dooku got pushed out entirely, because if you ask too many questions about what's going on, you get shoved to the side.
And Qui-Gon's
Dooku's apprentice.
Exactly. It was interesting to say about the emotional...
I'm going to make this quick. That's not what happened. Qui-Gon refused to join the Council. Yes, that's true. He wasn't pushed to the side, though. In fact, the Jedi Council wanted him to come on board because of how venerable and experienced the guy was. But Qui-Gon recognized that if he did that, he would no longer be able to properly follow the will of the Force, which required him to be out in the field. Dooku was not pushed out. He left. He left the Order because of the death of Qui-Gon. Like, Squatch, I believe, even said that, what was it, in the Plagueis novel or something of that nature, where if one more Jedi dies, Dooku leaves. Dooku will leave. He even says that. And lo and behold, his adopted son, basically, is killed.
Specifically, if one more Jedi dies because of the Council's incompetence, I am leaving.
And that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Not pushed out, he left voluntarily. Qui-Gon was not pushed to the side, he refused to play ball. Okay, 5 pieces done. Proceed.
Disconnect. George Lucas purposefully wrote it with that detachment, and Qui-Gon Jinn, Liam Neeson played him a bit more sympathetic, so he got reprimanded by George Lucas for just putting his hand on Shmi's shoulder in a scene, and he said, no, it's important we do that, because otherwise it seems that the Jedi are emotionally detached robots who are incapable of raising their Padawans, and I'm not looking like an absent father figure when I'm killed.
They were. They were that. I mean, these young boys, right, they took them, and this comes back to the worrying red flags about Yoda, right? Because
anyone who knows what my fan fictions are doing with specifically the fall of the Jedi Order knows my opinion on this. That that's kind of the entire point of the prequels in the fall of the Jedi Order. But just because you're able to grasp the obvious does not mean you're smart.
I mean, in addition to that, if you look at various different masters, Plo Koon, for example, a lot of them are very fatherly or motherly, depending on the organization. So to say universally that they're just emotionless robots is flat out wrong. But then again, you have to look beyond just the movies. Go ahead, Swords.
Like, the thing with the Jedi of the prequel era is, yes, they are falling away from the actual teaching of the Force, and being emotional, because they feared of being attached will lead to, anger and hate and blah 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 blah.
And all of this is because of the fall of Exar Kun.
Yes,
and the thing is, sorry, go ahead and finish your thought, Swords.
But on the other hand, because people are not robots, you can try to make them emotionless. They simply will not, take to it. A lot of the Jedi, Obi-Wan, as you said, Plo Koon, stick to the actual teachings of it. You have a spectrum of the Jedi who follow more of the will of the Force in the prequel era, and then those who are more aligned with, I guess, the institution, what the Lotus Eaters would say.
I mean, there is one Jedi who does kind of fit the bill, and she was known as the Dark Woman. And she was specifically the master of Aurra Sing. Yes, Aurra Sing was a failed Jedi originally before TCW took that part of her character out. And there's a specific part in the Republic comics where Aayla Secura is talking to Kit Fisto. And basically the two of them, the joke between them is that they got an affair on the side, and very much it's more than likely the case. And they're just in a communication with each other, talking to each other via the holocron, and they are very much sympathetic to each other. They're like, take care of yourself, hey, it's going to be okay, that sort of thing. And the Dark Woman and Jedi Master Thum, who's kind of like the Nick Fury of the Order, they walk in, and she reprimands Aayla for doing this. She reprimands Aayla for having this kind of emotional attachment to Kit.
Yeah.
They're friendly with each other. And you see Thum's reaction in the background. He's fucking annoyed by this. He's like, oh god, shut up, woman.
Here's my whole thing, and this is based on a tweet by Shady D-Rags from the other week, based on something on Avatar, but it's the same concept. And I even referenced that I even pinged you guys referencing that, yeah, Jedi Council is not the point, because a lot of the Jedi teachings on attachment come from Eastern philosophy. So, like, he was talking about a scene from Avatar The Last Airbender where Aang chooses his attachment to Katara over, cosmic energy. And what he said was, and I'm reading this verbatim, I had to go and find this. I see so many people misunderstand the concept of the thought chakra in Avatar The Last Airbender. The argument is often other avatars had husbands and wives, so Aang didn't need to do this. The point of this chakra isn't that the avatar can't have loved ones. Guru Pathik doesn't even mention love here. He mentions earthly attachments. The avatar is not supposed to attach themselves because they are required to have higher priorities in order to do their jobs. Aang's attachment, specifically his love for Katara, he would put her over his job as the Avatar. If something were to happen to Katara, Aang would have... You can basically replace Aang and Katara with Anakin and Padme, and you have the just of the prequels. Aang would have had problems continuing through life. If it came to saving the world or saving Katara, he would choose Katara. This often is seen as an admirable trait for someone, but it's a problem when your job is to save the world. Aang, as the Avatar, needed to let his priorities for Katara go so he could do his job. He could still love and marry her, he just couldn't prioritize her, which he winds up doing in this scene. For reference, the character of Aang from Avatar The Last Airbender is 11 years old, so him having this interpretation on attachment is very logical because kids would think like that. Mm-hmm. And like this ties into the problem with the Jedi Order, specifically Anakin's attachment to Padme, which is the entire crux of the tragedy of the prequels.
To be fair though, Anakin and Padme's relationship is not a healthy one. At least it's not at the time we're familiar with.
Well, the thing is with Star Wars, since it's more of a mix, more that you shouldn't let your emotions control you.
I mean, there was some stuff I was going to continue reading.
Sorry, continue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So, like, immediately after I posted this in the Koopa Troop server, I also posted Shady summarized why the prequel Jedi Order was wrong about attachment. Because this Aang's opinion was the opinion, and it was an opinion, ironically enough, based on fear, because Exar Kun. Using Eastern philosophy from Anakin was not wrong in having his attachments to Padme or his mother. He was wrong in that he let those attachments come before the will of the Force. And this scene, specifically the scene of Anakin and Guru Pathik, parallels the scene from Empire where Luke senses his friends in danger. He too goes. Does that cut him off from the Force? No, it doesn't. In fact, he becomes, according to George Lucas himself, the most powerful Jedi who ever lived. The old Jedi view of attachment forbidding families is a childish interpretation of an Eastern philosophy's view on earthly attachment, which is fitting because, like I said, Aang is a child. So what's Master Yoda's excuse? His excuse is thousands of years of sunk cost fallacy that the Jedi have been doing long before even he was born. And like it was thousands of years where they would come up with this Jedi shouldn't marry, have families, etc., because all of it, when you look into the Legends material, when you look into Expanded Universe, these policies didn't come out of thin air. It came out of a reaction to the fall of Exar Kun, who was a Jedi who fell to the dark side and became one of the most powerful Siths to ever live up to that point.
He also, because he was so charismatic and so... I don't know what the word is, but because he was so charismatic, he brought so many other Jedi to join him, and it basically turned the Jedi Order brother against brother, wife against husband, master against student.
It basically started a Jedi Civil War, which was so devastating,
awful.
Not only for the Order, but for the Republic, that people viewed Jedi as basically powerful sorcerer monsters for a while, and it basically caused the Jedi to have that sort of overreaction towards it. But that requires you knowing the context.
Right. And that's the thing. I'm going to make this quick. The Jedi are not human. They're not human. They've got more in common with mutants from X-Men. Because all you have to do is look at the devastation that Galen Merrick, aka Starkiller, is capable of in the Force Unleashed games. No matter your interpretation of it, this guy either directly ripped a Star Destroyer, a 3-kilometer ship, out of orbit and crashed it into a city, or he merely helped guide its trajectory down. No matter how you describe to that, these are not human. These people are not human. They are walking weapons of mass destruction. And in order to prevent them from turning into, child bombs that can blow up a city with their minds, they have to be trained. They have to be disciplined.
Well, that's the thing. Yes, they are extremely powerful, but they are human. Their souls are human.
They're human with the powers to blow up planets.
Yes, that's what I'm meaning.
Yeah. Okay. So that's that.
I forgot what my original point was after all of that, so let's continue the video.
Right,
yes.
Luke goes in The Empire Strikes Back, and he's like, what, 21, 22, something like that? Yoda looks at him, first thing he says is, you're too old, right?
Okay, he was 19 in New Hope. It's 3 years between New Hope and Empire, so 19, 20, he's 21 years old.
22.
22 years old.
Correctly. Yes.
You also called Anakin too old.
Well, hold on. Let's let him finish, because I want to see where this goes.
then, in The Phantom Menace, right, Anakin comes before him, and he's 9.
Yeah.
And he looks at him, and what does he say? Too old. You beast.
You're a retard.
Okay, let's break it down. Let's start with Anakin.
Well, we have to... Sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say we should...
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say we should probably hear what his problem is, so we could address it.
I think we know what his problem is. His problem is he thinks Yoda is a pedophile. Squasher, do I have that about right? You've seen this before.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know what? Let's meet halfway, play it, see what he has to say.
So they get these boys, and it
because there are no girl Jedi. Ahsoka Tano does not exist.
Or Shakti.
Or
just say this.
Or Ayla.
Or insert any female Jedi here. Continue.
Or the Exile.
Keep going.
In the whole script, they separate them from birth, and they raise them completely isolatedly.
They don't separate them from birth. We see this in TCW. They're not taken at birth. They're not taken as infants.
Yep, you have to get the parents' permission explicitly.
Yep.
Explicitly.
And even then, they won't be taken as children. They'll be tested at birth if they're within the Republic, and if the parents consent, they're still with the parents for at least 6 years.
4 years.
4 years.
But yeah. Continue.
So they've got basically no one to blow the whistle to. Is
there a question?
You mean the parents who they've asked and got the consent of throughout this entire thing? They're not being blown the whistle on? They're not blowing no whistles?
That surround this, I can see.
Massive safeguarding red flags.
When Palpatine says to Anakin, "You must break through the fog of lies the Jedi have created around you." So
you saw that
see through your trauma.
I mean, it's it's definitely a cult.
Yeah,
and that's no question, right?
It's no more cult than the Knights Templar or the Buddhist monks or insert monastic order here.
Like the Jedi are not space wizards; they're a religious monastic order.
Yes.
And let's look at the actual definition of a cult. A system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. A relative small group of people having religious beliefs and practices regarded by others as strange or sinister, and a misplaced or excessive admiration for a particular person or thing. They do not revere a particular figure or object. They do not revere a particular person or thing. They are not a small particular group that have strange or sinister beliefs. They follow, by their own practice, the will of the Force. Basically, God. They follow the will of God. And their ultimate goal is we're going to use our abilities to follow the will of God and protect people from danger, to protect them from evil. And the best way to do that is we're going to work alongside this Democratic Republican institution known as the Republic, who is probably the best government you can have around that isn't, a slave trading empire like the Hutts or a genocidal junta like the Sith empires before. By the way, is it junta or junta?
Junta. Junta.
Junta.
And then, of course, as you get into other expanded universe material before the Sith showed up, you had lovely governments in the Tion sector called run by a man by the name of Zim the Despot. So
wow, Invader Zim was actually successful.
So yeah. Out of all the factions that they could have joined, the Republic just makes the most sense.
Yes. The alternative is they just take over, and that probably would have been a bad idea.
An extremely bad idea.
Yeah, the Church didn't do that. For a good reason. It would have been a terrible system for Europe.
And thus not even getting into the actual, invading cult from, the expanding universe from, after the OT.
Are you talking about the Vong?
He is talking about the Vong.
I wouldn't say that's a cult. That's a false religion. There's a difference. Or pseudo. It might actually be somewhat true, depending on how you interpret it, because I'm not going to get into it. Not here. This stream is going on long enough as it is. So let's.
We're probably not even going to get to both of these videos.
We're trying to get through this video, so let's just keep going.
Yeah, it's like Plato's Guardians, entirely. They purposely pry them away from their families, raise them communally, so that they're wedded to defending the state.
But there's also
I think
sort
there's
of religious,
something also platonic about the relationship that Dan's suggesting here as well.
But it's definitely a religious cult, the Jedi Order, right? It's certainly a religious order that, like you say, has dubious.
Funny that the former atheist is saying this, almost like that former part isn't self-former.
There's child safeguarding questions surrounding it.
Many such cases.
I don't want to throw any shade on Connor's description of what happened at the beginning of this film, but actually, I can summarise it a little bit more.
I'm going to bring up the point I was going to bring up earlier, and I'm going to be very quick about this. The reason why Yoda had a problem with Anakin wasn't just his age. It was the fact that this kid had already grown up as a slave. He had already grown up in an abusive relationship with his master, and he had just been separated from his mother. He's not emotionally stable. He's 9 years old. As someone who's taught kids, especially boys start to fundamentally begin to establish their identity as a person at the age of 9. And then that continues to the age of 15. Prior to the age of 9, they're a lot more malleable. Once they get to 9, you're going to start to see what they're going to look like as an adult. So that's why it's important that they had to start training these kids as early as possible so as to formulate the foundation of building a responsible person with these superpowers. That brings us to Luke. Luke is described as he's headstrong, he's incredibly reckless, he's impatient, and by this point in time, he had lost his aunt and uncle, his dad is dead, according to him, he lost his father figure in Obi-Wan, and he's been fighting a non-stop guerrilla war against the Empire for 4 years, where he's lost a lot of his childhood friends. And what does Luke do during training? He often disregards the lessons that Yoda tries to impart onto him because he's impulsive, because he is impatient, because he isn't willing to play ball with Yoda and try to understand the philosophy. That he just wants to get all of his mastery done immediately. He's got a lot more Sith in him than he does Jedi.
And he doesn't want to have faith in things either.
Yeah. I mean, it's not until he's humbled by Darth Vader and he goes through the experiences in the cave that he starts to get, if I continue down this road, I'm going to turn into a very bad person. Like, a lot of Sith, they don't start out evil, unless you're Palpatine. He did start out evil.
Yeah, unless you're Palpatine.
Revan started out as a hero.
Yeah. Every single Sith started out as often good people. Genuinely good people. Even Darth Bane, he was formulated by his experiences from his abusive father and, working in the mines as a kid. If you take him out of that situation and gave him better parents, there's a good chance he might have come out better. What causes them to become Sith is they get a taste of power and they're never taught the discipline of using that power properly. It's like handing a kid a loaded gun and they kill somebody and they enjoy the feeling of it, the power it gives them, rather than giving them a loaded gun and teaching them, this is what this gun is used for. This is what you must use it for. You cannot use it for anything else. Because if you use it, you will destroy whatever's in front of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, let's continue.
Precisely with this. It was when we got to see how corrupt the Republic was and how desperately it needed to fall. And also Padme puts out for the first time, which starts the other story arc with Anakin going.
She doesn't actually put out.
You do
she does.
a lot of
She does.
Natalie Portman in nice outfits.
That bit.
Do you know Lucas made that outfit himself?
Oh, good man.
He made the corset
Good
outfit
man.
himself. Also, all of the dialogue that they did when they were on Naboo and then later in the Colosseum was improvised because Lucas said, I can't write romantic dialogue, you guys make it up.
So everyone blaming Lucas for all those corny lines, including the sand line. I think you owe George Lucas an apology right now. Everyone?
I'll just say this, as somebody who grew up in a desert, sand is coarse. It is rough, and it does get everywhere. Trust me, I know. We've been having enough of the freaking sandstorms up here.
Well, you had my attention, but now you have my erection. I can confirm that line does work.
Shut up.
I mean, okay, so some background. I've defended the dialogue in Attack of the Clones in our friend group for the longest time, as Tracer can back me up on this. I do not think that is true. I'm pretty sure that is actually George's writing.
It is George's writing. All you have to do is look at the original script of Empire during a lot of Han and Leia scenes, and you can tell that is his writing.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, shall we continue?
Yeah, let's.
Yes.
And so immediately Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen started flirting. They came up with the aggressive negotiations banter that they did a callback with, and apparently they both said, yeah, it got inappropriate really quickly.
Good on
And
him.
if you notice what had been happening in their relationship before then, is Padme had been putting Anakin through a series of shit tests before that.
Yes.
And every time he backed down, in that bloody cornfield, there was that scene where, and I want to come back to the whole corruption of the Republic. There was that whole scene where he's something like, I think this is the way that politics should work, and then she's like, oh, we do all that, and he's like straight away, oh, don't bullshit me, bitch. You don't do any of those things.
Yep.
Right, and you can just see the look on her face. It's like,
and it then smash cuts to them in the fireside at night where she's in basically bondage gear coming onto it.
It does.
Yeah, no.
So the moment he passes,
going, oh, I could never. Oh, this would be so inappropriate.
the moment he passes the shit test, he gets laid.
Well, he literally says, democracy's gay, basically,
Yeah.
womanly.
Yeah.
And so, we sit around talking. It's like, no, they should be made to agree. And so,
She loves it.
Yeah. Suddenly she's like, oh,
And then he comes back and he's like, oh, I just murdered a load of women and children. She's like, oh my god.
yeah. We can work it out, Anakin.
That is a very, very deliberate misinterpretation of everything that happened in that movie.
It's a funny
basically,
interpretation,
that being
though.
said, they are right. They are absolutely right about what Padme was doing up to that point. Like, anytime I think of that fireplace scene, I just think of Robot Chicken's version of it, where the pole comes out, and she starts watching R2-D2. Like, you know exactly what you're doing there.
Okay, I have to go stick up for Padme for just a second. Padme is not stupid.
No. We're not
she-
saying she's stupid.
She knows part of what Anakin is talking about during their political chat is directly parodying Palpatine. Because Anakin is very close to Palpatine.
Yeah, but at the same time, to give Anakin some credit, it makes sense why he would have those views, especially coming from his background.
Yeah.
It's
just like sorry.
Think of it this way, and I know they're probably going to bring this up later, but he lives on Tatooine, which is Hutt space, which is not that far away from Republic space, right? This short distance from Naboo to Tatooine. And the Republic couldn't do anything about it. The Jedi couldn't do anything about it.
Not without declaring open war on the Hutts.
Exactly. They are unable to do anything about it because no one was willing to go to war with these people, and more than likely because a lot of the corrupt senators and politicians within the Republic are taking bribes, if not worse, from the Hutts. So from his point of view, force makes right. Might makes right.
If you go by TCW, Jabba's own uncle lives on Coruscant.
Exactly. So, if we have these powers and we're out to protect people, why should we not use them to free the slaves of Tatooine? Which, yeah. So from his point of view, if this democratic Republican system is unwilling to help slaves that are just outside their border because, we don't want to offend the space slugs, what the hell is the point of it existing to begin with then? If it's just going to enrich the majority over the few.
Yeah. You mean the few over the majority?
Yeah.
No. I'm saying the majority over the few. The majority that is the Republic over the few that is the slaves of Tatooine.
Okay, that's fair.
I was just saying why Padme would still be interested in by it contradicting her pro-Republic views. No?
Yeah. Because Padme wants to reform the system, Anakin wants to outright replace the system.
I don't think she wants to, entirely replace it with...
No, he said Anakin wants to replace the system.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I misheard.
Yeah. Alright, shall we continue?
Yeah, let's...
Yes.
It's like, oh my god.
And actually, Padme's got quite a dark story, especially when you watch the deleted scenes, because my whole point about taking Jedi as children.
I haven't seen the deleted scenes.
Are these real deleted scenes, or are you making this?
No.
Deleted scenes that he deliberately misinterpreted and are also not necessarily canon.
It's not completely.
I feel like you're making a lot of shit.
There are deleted scenes with Padme.
So not only the Jedi taken as child soldiers, but the whole clone army, and the whole clone army thing, that's wildly suspicious, right? So actually, you made this point to me in the kitchen once when we were talking about Rome. I mentioned the Marius reforms, and you said that was the end of Rome because you went from a citizen volunteer army to a professional army. Right, so you're telling me that the Republic, with a population of 50 quadrillions...
Okay, I'm sorry. History nerds coming out. it was still a citizen army. You were not conscripted into the Roman military. You still volunteered for Roman service. The difference between the Marian reforms and the pre-Marian reforms boils down to this. The Roman military before the Marian reforms was based entirely upon social status. So you had the wealthy at the top who could afford all the equipment, you had the dirt poor at the bottom who could barely afford any kind of equipment, and then you had the guys in the middle who could afford some kind of equipment. What the Marian reforms did was that they standardized training and they standardized equipment. Everything was provided by the state. You personally didn't have to buy anything. This was still a citizen volunteer military.
I have a question about that. You said that would lead to the fall of Rome, but that sounds like a really good idea.
It was a good idea because the reason the Marian reforms came about was because the Romans had just gotten sacked by the Gauls. The Gauls had come down and they had sacked Rome, and they were rampaging through the Republic. That's entirely the reason why Rome built walls, was because of that. So the Marian reforms were built to prevent that from happening again, which is why we need to standardize the training, the deployment, and the equipment of our army, and we need to professionalize it to such a degree this never happens again. And guess what? The Roman Republic survived 3 more centuries after that, and the Empire, if obviously when you count in the Eastern Roman Empire, lasted almost 2,000 years after that. So I'd say it worked.
Yeah, but it ended as a republic and became an empire. When did it become an empire after the Marian reforms?
Shortly before the birth of Jesus.
Empire, yes. So, about 33 or so, Caesar is killed, then you have the civil war between Mark Antony and Octavius. Octavius wins, declares himself Augustus Caesar.
Well, how long ago before that was the reforms?
About 300 years.
Okay.
I'll probably fudge the numbers here, but about 200 to 300 years.
Okay. Fascinating. Yeah, but in this scenario, I wouldn't say the adoption of the clone army is anything like the reforms at all. You're using a slave army of conscripted genetically engineered super soldiers. That's completely different. Well, not super soldiers.
I'm sorry, the Republic could do with the Marian reforms and an actual standing army.
Oh yeah, the Republic should have something like the Marian reforms. It doesn't have that though.
It didn't have a standing army, and they were about to go to war. What were they going to do?
Yeah, that's the problem.
The closest Star Wars got to the reforms is kind of started with Rebels. I don't know if it also was the thing in Legends. Is some of the clone troopers that survived to join the rebellion, they passed on their training and some of their equipment to the rebel army.
I wouldn't say that's the Republic. If we're talking about the Republic, the closest thing that they had to the Marian reforms comes after KOTOR and then in SWTOR, when they had the standardized Republic troopers.
Well, I was just talking about Star Wars in general.
Like, those guys, the old Republic troopers, they were badass. I mean, you have, I forget what his name is, but you had that one particular trooper who decided to straight up tackle Darth Malgus and try to kill him with his knife. Sorry?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you had the best of both worlds.
Yeah, Jace Malcolm.
And then that era
I'm sorry?
And then that era ended when they decided to get rid of their army with the Rusan Reformation after the end of the new Sith Wars.
Yeah.
And to provide some context, that is purely because by that point in time, the Jedi were forced to take over the military and run it. That's why it became the Army of the Light.
And they
became
became
the only way that
feudal lords, and they became feudal lords and kings. The Jedi during that time period.
So, to save the Republic, they had to ascend to a political authority because of how bad the situation had gotten. And so by the end of it, the Republic senators in Coruscant were basically scared of this, and just like Europe did, they went to the extreme opposite. Like, no more military. That the Jedi are downsided, and we're going to take away all the Jedi's rights, and yada, yada, yada. We're going to make sure that they stay on course on it, under our control. And frankly, the Jedi said, screw you. No, we're not giving this up.
To be fair, if they did that, that would have been the end of the Republic.
Giving up our ability to do our job. And we sure as hell are not going to allow you to demilitarize your own governments. Like, what are you going to do?
I will say this, Tracer, if they had done what you suggested, that would have been the end of the Republic.
Well, to be brutally honest, the Republic should have died. And something new should have come about from it.
Yeah. Probably.
Because, I'm sorry, if you have to kowtow to a bunch of toothless politicians who have a problem with you defeating an ancient evil that wanted to destroy you, then, I'm sorry, that government should no longer exist. It should be disbanded, and a new government should be created from its ashes. That was probably the greatest mistake of the Jedi. They should have been willing to allow the Republic to die so something new can come about, something better.
Yeah. Alright, shall we continue?
Yes.
Something like that. They cannot field a citizen army. They have to grow child soldiers.
They couldn't field a citizen army because they only had like 11 minutes. And even then, some planets did field a citizen army. Some of them were already fielding a citizen army. Ram Koda was fielding a citizen army.
Even in Clone Wars.
This is not covered in TCW.
Yeah, well, even in Clone Wars, you had certain planets that had a citizen army.
Yeah, but those were planetary defense forces. They weren't. They were meant to protect their own planet, not go out and and fight the enemy.
And even then, a lot of the officer class of the Republic Navy were not clones.
That's true.
Shall we continue?
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah.
In secret.
Yeah.
Well, the reason, and it gets expanded on in the Clone Wars series, which you should watch, is that they've installed programs.
I suddenly realize why you hate this video, Squish.
I have no problem with what he's saying here. Continue.
In all of the clones, so that when Sidious says execute Order 66, it's like the Manchurian candidates. It flips and they can turn on the Jedi.
Yeah. But it's a brilliant bit of manoeuvring by Palpatine to create these two sides in the war. One entirely made of a droid army
that can be then instantly deactivated when he's done with the Separatists.
Yeah. And then the clones as well, who have this accelerated growth. And
who the Republic want destroyed anyway. Right, they want the clone army destroyed because it's like this wasn't authorized. Who's behind this?
Right.
So you've got two armies that aren't like.
Yes.
Want to know who's behind it?
Take a wild guess.
The Sith are literally behind it. Plagueis literally funded it initially. Tyrannus continued to fund it. Palpatine continued to fund it.
I'm going to throw in one more element into this, and I'll be quick about this. There was an attempt made, ironically, by Randolph Tarkin, who was either the cousin or the uncle of Wilhelm Tarkin.
It was his uncle.
Mr. Bull of Alderaan Tarkin.
It was his uncle.
His uncle, thank you. He made an attempt to expand the Outland Security Force into a proper military. And at first it worked, because it was a standardized series of system armies, basically a bunch of planetary militias get together, they standardize military equipment, they standardize their training, they standardize their leadership, and they all fall under a single leadership cadre. Basically, they have a joint command structure. And then they have their first real test, which is fighting the pirates of, I forget what his first name is, the Stark pirates, who were basically stealing fact supplies from the Republic on such an extreme level that there was a call, we need to deal with this. Either send the Jedi or we need to develop a military. They go and do this, and the pirates somehow find out that the security force is coming and they freaking ambush them and they completely slaughter them.
The Stark
It would not surprise me. Yes, the Stark Hyperspace War. It would not surprise me if Plagueis, I don't know if Palpatine was around at this point. No, yes, he would have been because Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were involved in that conflict. So the two of them probably leaked that information to the pirates.
They
Because
straight
they
up
recognized. Yeah. Wait, they straight up did?
Yeah, it's covered in the Plagueis novel.
Okay, there you go. There you go. So there was an attempt by the Republic to build a military, and it was squashed in infancy. Because they knew if it succeeded, the Republic would have no need to use these clones. Because we already have a military. I'll even throw one more element into this. In order to bail out the Jedi, in order to bail out the security forces who were stranded in an Alamo situation, they had to call upon the Trade Federation. The Trade Federation got its massive boost of power from this. If this did not happen, the Trade Federation probably would not have been in a position to do the shit they did on the boat.
Thank you, Plagueis and Palpatine.
Ironically, I do have to thank them because without the clones, I wouldn't have one of my favorite two of my favorite characters. So
You would still have them. They'd just be working with the citizen army of the Republic, which would be
Clones would be more like special forces, basically.
which probably wouldn't be operating with Jedi, which is the entire point. They need to operate with Jedi to kill
the
them.
Jedi.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
shall we
continue?
continue?
Yes.
Sort of the people of the Republic are not invested in, right? So like this is all sort of ethereal to them, and it's,
However,
not their business.
So,
It's very clever.
all of this is a classic point. We must return to it soon, but I hadn't finished the Padme point.
Sorry,
My
go on.
point is they had a whole load of child soldiers, but not only did they need that, they needed a child queen as well. So how corrupt is this whole set of institutions? But not
concerning.
only do you need child soldiers, but you need a child queen. Now, if you watch the deleted scenes, one of the things she talks about is how when she got first involved in the young politicians program, she had a romance with an older man.
Lies.
That was not a
Lies.
deleted scene. That was actually in the movie.
Not only that, but
he wasn't.
you want to know why she became queen? Our favorite Sith Lords, Palpatine and Plagueis. She's the reason why she became a queen. She became the queen at the young age, because Plagueis assassinated the king of Naboo before her with his midichlorian manipulation technique, which they'll bring up in the other video. But continue.
And they quite correctly.
You're right, yeah.
They quite correctly chopped that out. So what shit is going down in this republic that you need a child queen to sign off on the stuff that's doing, who's been indoctrinated from birth, that you need child soldiers, and what's going on that when a 9-year-old turns up...
Pause. She wasn't indoctrinated from birth.
No, obviously not.
I think they were talking about the clones in that instance. He just misspoke.
To go into, Yoda's playroom, he looks at it and says, "No, you're too old." I mean, seriously, what is going on? What is going on in that room that even a 9-year-old is going to go, "Master Yoda, you want us to do what?"
Does this explain as well why, if she's had inappropriate relations with older men when she was far too young, the second that she meets...
Wow, Harry Robinson listens and believes a complete lie that's been told to him. Imagine my shock. He listens and believes to something that he thinks sounds based.
Let's be fair, none of these guys are Star Wars fans to begin with. They wouldn't question anything coming from this guy's mouth.
Either that or they are just really misinterpreting something.
There's 2 more minutes left of this video, and I really don't want to do the other one because I know that in the other one at least, or was it in this one, Squish, where they say the destruction of Alderaan was justified?
I think it was in the other one. Continue.
9-year-old Anakin, she
she's
starts
into it.
throwing googly eyes at him.
It's the Stone Tops comic of how did he possibly turn to the dark side and just...
Just for a record, since I know Keg is watching, even though I can't see the chat, Stonetos is a fucking Nazi. He's a fucking Nazi who thinks that fucking Half-Life 2 is woke because it has black people in it. If these guys still take Stone Toss seriously after that, you'd really need to start questioning their character.
Oh, I've been questioning character for a very long time.
Continue.
Padme's grabbing him. How old are you? 9.
Yeah, it's literally that.
So there's this trilogy.
So Anakin taking over the Republic and putting it to rights suddenly looks a lot.
Oh, in addition, he's not only a Nazi and a white nationalist. He's Mexican.
Wait, hold on. Back up a second. How is he a white nationalist, but he's also Mexican?
Same way Nick Fuentes is.
Are you saying he's Uncle
Same way
Ruckus?
Monsieur Z is.
Uncle Ruckus?
Same way Monsieur Z is.
Oh my.
I wonder if your friend is watching. I think if she is watching, I think you know the scene that I showed you.
Yeah, I know the scene you're talking about.
So let's continue.
There is a point to this. If you don't mind, just quickly, it's that, and anyone who says that Hayden Christensen wasn't a very good actor, you've been fact checked by psychologists, right? In 2007, there was a psychologist called Dr. Eric Bouy from Toulouse in France, and he wrote that, compellingly, you can diagnose Anakin with borderline personality disorder, which means that he's got an anxious avoidant attachment style.
That's a man with BPD.
Very feminine. He's very violent. He lashes out when he feels like he's being abandoned, and that's usually inflicted by early childhood trauma. So
you're implying that it was the Jedi, forgetting that he was a fucking slave.
Yep.
You retards. I'm sorry, I'm pushing the button again.
You are an idiot!
That is cathartic for me. I'm going to do it one more time.
You are an idiot!
I will send you to Jesus.
Like, Watto was not some, like, grand, like, benevolent slave master.
He made him race in death races.
Actually,
yeah.
Anakin had to fake his way into doing that, so...
Yeah. Watto only allowed it because he realized he could, make money off of Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
Proceed.
Not only is it scientifically proven, seems like your theory might be right, Dan.
Them putting Anakin on the council and not making him master is outrageous and unfair. It was an attempt to humiliate him because he didn't obey Mace Windu and Yoda. That's a great point as well.
Yeah.
No. The very fact that he reacted like a petulant child is exactly the reason why he wasn't put on the Jedi Council. Like, let me put it this way. You are... Okay, let's break it down here for a second. You are Anakin Skywalker, you're Billy Badass, you're a great commander and what have you, and you've been given a job as a representative from Palpatine onto the Jedi Council. And you basically demand that you should also be made a master, even though, effectively speaking, you've only been a captain this entire war. Maybe, pushing it, maybe you're a colonel. And now you're demanding, I should be put on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I should be made a 4-star general. No, that's not how it works. You haven't been in the job long enough. You haven't been doing all this, and you demand that you should be put into this position. No, you're not getting it.
Here's the thing about it. I do not think he should be on the council. I'm the opposite. I do not think he should be on the council at all. Because, seniority and all that. However, having read, all the stuff that you have to do to become a master, I do think he qualifies for it, and
So what you're saying is you grant him the rank of master, but you do not allow him a seat on the council. Don't have a seat, young Skywalker.
Yes. you because I can see how he gets angry. Having, like, if you watch the full, Clone War, like, if you watch everything in sequence, including Clone Wars, if it makes his reaction where he basically did everything, to become a master more, understandable why he just gets outraged at that instead of just coming out of nowhere.
And if you take in the case of the novelization, he just straight threatens Mace Windu by saying, maybe I'll take your chair.
And another thing, Anakin at that point, if we go with the novelization, does not care anymore about the Jedi. In fact, he's perfect. After the war is over, it's pretty much suggested that he just leave. He only cares about becoming a master because that would give him access to the knowledge of the knowledge in the secret archives, which he thinks will help him save Padme from dying because of the whole nightmares in his head.
Yeah.
Which brings me to this. If Anakin had the humility, not problem, humility, he had the humility to accept, okay, you're not going to make me a master.
Hang on, guys. OBS is disconnected.
Oh, we lost stream?
It reconnected. We're back. We might have missed... we might have missed some of what Tracer just said. Are we still connected? I will ask the chat.
I'm looking right now. It says it's not... Okay, now it's live.
Yeah, okay. So assume the last 2 minutes wasn't true. Swords would make Anakin a master, but would not grant him a seat on the council. Don't have a seat, young Skywalker, etc., etc.
And I said that had Anakin had the humility to accept the decision made by the council and just sat down and didn't throw a bitch fest, the council would have made him a master because they would have recognized he has developed the maturity to be willing to take criticism and be willing to admit he's wrong. And that would have been enough for them. They probably would have said, you know what? We're going to make you a master.
Oh, hey, Jay's in the chat. I like Jay. I'm going to give him a wrench.
Okay, we got like 30 seconds left. Let's finish this up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's not cover we can only torture ourselves so much. Let's not do the other video.
Let's at least see how long.
That's a really great point.
It's 10 minutes. It took us 2 hours to get through one 10-minute video, Swordsman.
Okay, yeah.
I can understand why EFAP takes 11 hours.
Yeah, and they're not as smart as us, so they don't have as much to say.
It's like, yeah, okay, you can come on the council, but you're not a Jedi Master.
Well, another way of looking at it is that they didn't have sufficient dirt on him yet. They hadn't booked him in for a session with the young.
What?
That's not it at all.
Why is this guy...
Failure!
Yeah.
Why is this guy obsessed with this? Because it seems like he wants to put that joke into everything.
I don't know. Let's finish this up.
With their video cameras in the corners.
They didn't Epstein him, yeah.
So they didn't have the dirt to let him on the council.
And I think they knew that he never would have gone for that anyway.
Probably, yeah.
Incorruptible.
Yeah. But that is a real...
Says the guy.
Yeah, I told you this was going to happen.
This is swell.
Okay, that's enough.
Yes, Anakin Skywalker, the guy infamous for becoming Darth Vader, the guy infamous for falling into moral relativism. Whatever. Is uncorruptible.
Can I press it at least one more time, Tracer?
You can do it one more time, just one though. Just one.
No. Anakin won't do no stuff with kids, but he'll kill them perfectly fine. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Did this guy who keeps making?
I'm closing to watch together. I've seen enough. I don't need to see the next video.
Let's finish
we
up
have-
the video.
Let's not and say we did. This is actually painful for me now.
Koopa, you got me on stream to see this. I want to see it through.
We're done. It's my channel. I get to call the shots. We're done here. Squish, give us a summary of the other video because I cannot. It is physically painful. Just give us the worst of the worst.
And I do know a little bit of what happens in the next video, so I'll talk about that when Squish is done.
Come on, please. Let's.
Okay, so basically, if I remember everything correctly, they're talking about how the Jedi Order are incredibly rules based, and they don't debate their Sith opponents, even though there's no fucking point in debating Sith. And
what?
Plagueis is a bit.
Okay, I need to stop you right.
Just let him finish.
I need to get.
No.
Sorry,
let him finish, and then we'll hit this point. And we'll hit this point by point.
Okay.
Plagueis' whole midichlorian manipulation is they see it as wrong and whatnot, and Anakin should be allowed to find out where he came from because he was born of the Force or whatever and whatnot, and maybe not. Maybe the Sith created him, and why would he be wrong in searching for that? Yada yada yada. Yeah.
And they tried to justify the destruction of Alderaan.
That too.
Right, and that the Empire did nothing wrong.
Okay,
let's hit this point by point. Well,
okay.
Thorns, what were you going to say?
First point. We see countless times where the Jedi debate Sith on their ideology. We see this with Reddit. Granted,
in the movies only. We're not talking about.
Okay, movies. Obi-Wan versus Anakin. In Revenge of the Sith.
Dooku versus Obi-Wan.
In Attack of the Clones.
Maul wasn't very
Maul
talkative.
Didn't even try to. Maul wasn't talkative and didn't even try to debate.
He was there to do one thing: kill.
Yeah.
Let's debate the man with a fucking double-bladed lightsaber who is here just to kill people. Yeah, that's totally something that we should do.
Yes. Luke with his father. Sorry.
Yes, that too. How does that end every single time? The Sith try to kill the Jedi. Dooku orders Obi-Wan's death. Anakin straight up tries to murder Obi-Wan, and he does ultimately kill him anyway later on. And then we come to Luke and Vader, which actually brings us to the next argument point. Luke versus Palpatine. Palpatine sadistically pits Luke against his dad, and then when Luke won't fall in line with killing his dad, tortures him with the full intention of torturing him to death. And on top of that, he gave him a front row seat to watch his friends be killed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, debate the Sith? The Sith only care about power. Like, would you try to debate Joseph Stalin? Adolf Hitler?
I have tried debating Kreia. I won somewhat, but she's not really that willing to listen.
Exactly. She will resort to trying to kill you. Joseph Stalin will send you to a gulag. Adolf Hitler will send you to a concentration camp. You can't debate evil like this. Because they're so set in their ways of, I want power at any all cost, they will kill to get it.
The only time
where
a Jedi has successfully debated a Sith and actually turned him to the light was in SWTOR, where the Jedi, I think it was Satele Shan, managed to debate a member of the Dark Council away from the dark side into the light.
Well, there's also another KOTOR example. Revan has successfully done so as well, both in the final stage of the game.
Oh, with Bastila and Malik?
Yes.
Does it really count if Bastila was kind of under mind control?
Well,
tortured into joining them, yeah.
It's supposed to. The thing is, it plays into how Star Wars is a mix of Western and Eastern ideals, and how love always redeems, never, will condemn you.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was the next point?
That,
We've established that the Sith are evil, and they always resort to extreme violence to get what they want.
This next point was playing
power over life and death is not an evil power that Plagueis uses, and Anakin should not be condemned for seeking out that kind of power. To which I'm like,
I need a drink.
Do you not know?
Roger, lead us off. You know Plagueis the best. Explain why it's evil.
Okay. First off, if we're going with just the movies, there is a possibility that Palpatine is just straight up bullshitting him. But assuming he's not, and we take the Plagueis novel as is, which I do, Plagueis is not a good person. He facilitated the corruption of the Republic, caused it to fall, and used the power over life and death that he created through the manipulation of the midichlorians, which, by the way, is a fundamental and horrid abuse of the Force. That automatically is evil.
Yeah.
He used it to torture his test subjects, killing them and bringing them back to life just because he could.
That's fucked up.
Yes.
Also, when directly approached on the subject, that was Plagueis Anakin's father, or was it the Force? George explicitly stated it was the Force, that Plagueis wasn't responsible for.
We've met the being that was created by the midichlorian manipulation in Legends, right, Squasher? We've met the being that they created through, and it's not Anakin. Who is it?
No, they didn't create anybody. What happened was when the attempt was made, the Force more or less basically struck back, took control of their attempt, and created Anakin from that. They didn't succeed in creating a being at all. Go ahead, Tracer.
I once actually discussed a similarity between what Plagueis does and how the Force responds to the plot of Ultimate Alliance, where Doctor Doom gains access to the powers of Odin and starts using those powers to fundamentally reshape the universe around him, turning heroes into villains and warping reality to where everyone idolizes him as a god. And the Watcher has to step in, save some of the heroes from death, breaking his usual oath of non-interference in order to prevent this from happening, because it was going to literally break the fabric of reality. That is no different than what we're facing with here. Plagueis' ambition was to gain control over life and death, to make himself basically unkillable, and to create an entire potential race of super beings that he could use to take over the galaxy.
Yeah.
As for the claim that the Jedi did not let Anakin, investigate his chosen one status, that is a very bizarre claim, considering that they claimed that they watched the Clone Wars, because
Anakin doesn't seem to care about his chosen one status. So,
one, he doesn't believe in the chosen one prophecy. You see this, he's confused by it and doesn't believe in it, according to the Mortis trilogy. And even though Qui-Gon tells him that he needs to, fulfill his destiny still. Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Plo Koon believe in the prophecy. It's only Mace Windu who doesn't.
Somebody does. I think it was Yoda who basically says misinterpreted or misread the prophecy could have been, or something like
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah, but he still believes it. Like, he doesn't... Like, the thing is there's no, like, saying that you can't... Like, we can't follow the prophecy at all, you know. We need to shun it.
their argument is he's not allowed to investigate where he comes from, like the whole what created him. Well, the Force did because of what the Sith did. Like, so, yeah. Another thing they brought up in the video is, to be honest, I don't remember everything, but another thing they brought up was Alderaan was a rebel planet, and the Empire were right to destroy it, even though I'm like, an entire planet with 2 billion people on it.
What the fuck?
Not everyone on that planet could possibly been a rebellion supporter. You would have had at least one.
Look,
Empire
let me demonstrate how ridiculous this thought process is. If we go on with the assumption that just because this planet was holding rebel sympathizers being recruited from, that we should just blow up the whole goddamn thing and kill everybody there, that is as ridiculous as saying Israel should just nuke Gaza. Like, wholesale, just nuke it.
Based.
I knew you were going to say that. But the reason that's ridiculous is because you're condemning the innocent and the guilty in one stroke, just to kill what is effectively a handful of lunatics that have ruled that place like a police state and forced people into basically fighting with the Israelis. Like, drone striking these guys, perfectly fine. Occupation, perfectly fine. Assassinations to take out these specific people, perfectly fine. But just nuking the whole thing? No.
Well, of course not, because the fallout will also hit Israel.
Worse. I'm just saying, you do that, and you are going to basically make it very easy for the entire world to now completely turn against you, which is exactly what happens to the Empire when they blow up Alderaan.
Yeah,
like,
this is not like blowing up. This is also, sorry, I'll be quick. This is also not blowing up a random backwater planet who is also a quote-unquote rebel planet. Alderaan was called the heart of the Republic, and regardless of what you think, the Empire still holds some reverence for the Galactic Republic. At least its citizens do.
And Vader was very much against the blowing up of Alderaan.
He was very much against the entire idea of the Death Star at all. Like, he did not like it one bit.
I'm going to throw in my personal headcanon as to why Alderaan was destroyed, because we know that Sidious himself had a problem with doing this. It had nothing to do with stopping the rebellion. Alright, let me break this out. So Tarkin, and I'm going to include Rogue One here for a second, Tarkin basically steals the Death Star project from Krennic.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kills Krennic off, and he blows up the site where the plans are being kept to ensure no one can know about how to blow up the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
What does he do after?
Blows up Alderaan.
He goes and blows up Alderaan on the flimsiest of evidence that a political leader from the planet is working with the Rebel Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
And what does he do then?
Goes to blow up the Rebel Alliance.
He goes to blow up the Rebel Alliance, leaving behind his Imperial escort. He had an Imperial escort with him until he goes to Yavin.
Mm-hmm.
He left behind the Imperial escort, and then he proceeds to attempt to blow up Yavin. What I think is really going on is that Tarkin has filled his ranks of sycophants, as we saw in that scene where, Vader chokes a bitch. He's filled it with sycophants who are loyal to him. He has basically removed the Imperial escort fleet that was with him originally. He goes and blows up Alderaan to basically prove, don't mess with me. Blows up the Rebel Alliance to basically kill the leadership of the rebellion. You want to know what he was probably going to do afterwards? Since we know that Rogue One demonstrated you could say to a single reactor explosion to take out a specific target. He was going to go to Coruscant, and he was going to take out the Emperor in his throne room. This had nothing to do with stopping the rebellion. This had nothing to do with bringing an end to the war. This was a deliberate attempted coup on Tarkin's part that got stopped by the rebels accidentally.
So he was banking on his old friendship with Vader.
Yep. I think probably what he would have done is offered him a deal. I will kill the Emperor, I will be in charge, you will now work under me, and I will give you more freedom to pursue whatever you want. Because we know that Vader was chafing under Palpatine's authority, and he was actively looking for an excuse to try and kill this guy.
Mm-hmm. Another thing they brought up was the Empire was better than the Republic. It actually had a volunteer army that brought order across the galaxy and ended slavery on Tatooine, which it didn't. Whatever. They even brought up the only place where slavery was on Tatooine was in Jabba's palace. I'm like, citation needed.
No.
Okay, let's everyone turn your eyes to Return of the Jedi, where one of the lines from the celebration is Jar Jar Binks saying "We suffer free," or a Gungan saying "We suffer free."
Mm-hmm.
The reason why that line was added was not because to just get a cameo from Jar Jar Binks or a Gungan. Even in the expanded universe or Legends or whatever you want to call it, the Empire had several slaving operations.
The first Death Star was built by Geonosian slave labor.
And Wookiees.
And Wookiees.
Wookiees.
Among others, even in Rebels, you see Wookiee slaves. One of the first episodes literally has the Rebels crew save Wookiee slaves. So...
Let's go to A New Hope, for example, when they're talking about the spice mines of Quetzal, how we'll be enslaved there and broken down.
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, Quetzal is under Imperial authority.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
just like Afghanistan was under CIA authority.
The spice must flow, Tracer. The spice must flow. Right, wrong setting. Wrong setting.
No. Well, technically, still the right setting, thanks to stuff in Clone Wars.
No, it's references. It's not the same as Dune.
Though I do want to point out one thing in Rebels, because someone might bring it up. While yes, Rebels is mostly Disnoid, it was planned before Disney bought the company because George wanted to do another show, and that's partly why the budget was axed for it, because Kathleen Kennedy tried to kill that show.
Yeah, but they also brought up. I brought up the Citizen Army, just because the Empire has a citizen army of volunteers and.
Who says they're volunteers? From what I understand of all forms of the expanded media, a lot of the Imperial Army were conscripts.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they were.
Yep.
Although to be fair, if you go with the Legends, the Stormtrooper Corps is more like the Waffen SS, and then you have the Imperial Army, which are basically the Wehrmacht.
Speaking of that, they talked about the whole child soldier thing. Well, how do they address that one arc in Rebels where they're literally training 10-year-olds in live fire situations?
Yep. Heck, in Rebels, they went full Hitler Youth.
In Rebels, when I believe this was season 4, when a Imperial factory creating the weapons and vehicles for the Empire was failing, Thrawn came in and had all the workers test everything live.
Yep.
Which included killing everyone that tested a defective weapon under the belief that they were being sabotaged. Yeah, that sounds totally better than the Republic, Carl.
Another
Well,
one.
Go and finish, because I've got a final point here I want to make.
Another thing they brought up was the working man likes the Empire.
The working man who is being made to test their weapons in live fire demonstrations. Yeah, I'm sure they love it. Excuse me, I have to press the button again.
You are an idiot!
This button's getting a lot of mileage tonight.
I want a citation on the working man likes the Empire because I can't think of a single example of a
Obi-Wan
that likes the Empire.
Kenobi, specifically the series Kenobi.
They cited the Kenobi series? Excuse me a second.
You are an idiot!
That's become my
You were
new
saying,
favorite
Tristan?
button, by the way.
You were saying, Tracer?
Yeah. Here's the real reason why I think that they support the Empire. It has everything to do with the fact that they're alt-right. What is the Empire? I know we talked about this a couple nights ago, but what is the Empire fundamentally?
If I can introduce, let's not throw alt-right around. They're culture grifters. They're not the alt-right. Spoon's the alt-right.
Still, they court with it and they support it from what we've seen.
Not always and not on all issues, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Let's not minimize the term alt-right the way the lefties minimize the term Nazi, or the way the culture grifters minimize the term woke.
Okay, fair enough. But what is the Empire?
British.
It is an authoritarian, top-down, racially based, militarized, hyper-nationalistic, cartel-controlled
By the British.
imperial regime that supports the slavery of everybody else. The Empire, if we go back to the original trilogy, the Empire are basically a bunch of German-wearing British white dudes. Now, subsequent media has thrown in other races such as, black people, Asians, what have you, which is perfectly fine, because the Empire is based upon the idea of the human race, humans in general, being superior to everybody else. The Republic has alien representatives. They have alien politicians. The Empire comes in, they're all gone. It's nothing but humans. And they take those aliens and they make them into slaves, or they genocide them. And they promote the idea of humanity, human race is racially superior to everybody else, and we're going to force that through the might of an enormous military, industrial military complex that's basically run by like 4 companies.
So what you're saying is they're 40K fans.
Yeah. Palpatine was trying to speedrun 40K.
Yeah, basically. I once talked about this before, but there's very little difference between Malkador the Sigillite and Palpatine, down to the point that they kind of copied a lot from Palpatine to make Malkador the Sigillite, including some of his own power feats.
Wow! Fucking 40K copying something from something else. Imagine my shock. They even copy from Unification, from the fan mod.
Oh god, we have a ever growing list of that too.
Swords is trying to say something.
Let's be fair, a little fair to 40K. The Imperium of Man is varied on how bad it is, depending on what mini faction you go to. It's not all copy of Star Wars Empire plan.
Yeah, the Galactic Empire in Star Wars is a lot more centralized compared to the Imperium of Man, mostly because the technology does not allow the Imperium of Man to be centralized. So.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the Imperium of Man is not a fascist organization. It's not the Nazis. It's not even communist. It's feudalistic.
Yeah. some places are actually really good places with a lot of good people. Other places are really evil.
So long as you worship the God Emperor.
Tracer, I would say that it is more like
the
Stalinism,
Imperium.
but that is just me.
Well, it's the Roman Empire. It's the Roman Empire. It's the Eastern Roman Empire because it runs off of the same fundamentals. It will allow you to run your own sphere of influence, but you have to pay taxes. You have to follow imperial law. You have to contribute soldiers to our ever-growing conquest. I mean, okay, the last point here, you have to worship the emperor. It wasn't so much the case in the case of the Roman Empire because they were not a theocracy. Even when the Christians took over, they still were not a theocracy.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a stipulation with them. So that was something that was kind of added for them specifically, but yeah. Actually, now that I think about it,
Well,
I mean, the Eastern Roman Empire did make it a requirement that you had to follow Orthodox Christianity, so yeah, no, I suppose it's there as well.
well, the thing is, the reason why that's a rule has the benefit of twofold. One, you're making the God Emperor, more powerful as the, guardian deity of mankind, who can then fight the demons of chaos. Two, you're corrupting him into a benevolent deity through your faith. Therefore, you're doing your duty as a citizen.
Yes.
That being said, argue it's the Primarch's Imperium that survived the Horus heresy, not the Emperor's Imperium.
Yes.
It is Gilliman's Imperium that survived, ultimately.
But other than... That's beside the point, yeah. Palpatine, if Palpatine could, he would create the 40k Imperium with himself as the God Emperor. But he can't, because he died before he could do that, so...
I mean, you could take Dark Empire into consideration. He just straight up wanted to mind control everybody in the galaxy and make them all extensions of himself. Wait a second.
Yeah.
That berserk from Buzz Lightyear. That's literally the plot of the movie.
Yes.
He steals the Unimind, literally turned everybody into an extension of himself.
Curse you, Buzz Lightyear. You're right, that is literally Palpatine's cool.
Alright, we've been going for 2 hours. We should start wrapping it up.
Yes.
Okay.
The point is, the reason these guys support the Empire is because they want the Empire. They want it to be a thing. Because what is the thing about most revolutionaries? Make no mistake, these guys, if they could, they'd start a revolution. The revolutionaries, with very few exceptions, depose of the status quo, put themselves into the status quo, and then resume it. And look at the Soviet Union, for example. When Stalin was explaining to his mother what he was, he literally just said, "I am a Tsar."
And then she responded, "You should have stuck with being a priest."
Because
how about put some Tsar money on the table? Karl Marx's own mother. I wish he was making capital instead of writing about it.
You were saying you continued, Tracer. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail that.
What these guys want is not to reform the system. It's not to make things right. It's not to make a fairer society for everybody, where you can be left alone, where you can pursue what you want, where I don't have to pay taxes on an exorbitant amount because I own some land. Where, a person who's basically living in a goddamn tenement has to pay an exorbitant amount of property tax for living in a crappy apartment.
God bless
They don't want to
America.
fix any of that. They just want to put themselves at the top and put the people who wronged them at the bottom and do what was done to them onto them.
Full on horseshoe theory, and it's what I've been saying in video after video after video after video. The culture warrior grifters have become the thing they claim to fight against. They want to be the social justice warriors who control the media and entertainment and everything else. They don't have a problem with the whip. They just want to be the one wielding it.
Considering what's going on in Britain right now, it's understandable, but it's a dangerous mindset.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Because if you dedicate yourself off of nothing but revenge, you will lose your humanity. Case in point, Germany. Case in point, the Soviet Union. You will ultimately go to the same level as your enemies, and you will probably do something worse, because, let's be honest here, the right is always a lot more organized than the left is about this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
One who fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster.
Ironically, that's the lesson Luke had to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was almost on that path.
Take on the weapons of your enemy, and you will become just as bad as they are.
Mm-hmm. And like it comes full circle. That was the point of the tweeter who was pointing at this particular podcast and pointing out how awful it is and how awful the culture war grifter class has become. Like, it's just making these talking points the same way the left did, because only a leftist would look at Star Wars and say the bad guys are good guys and the good guys are bad guys. All they're doing is quote unquote deconstructing the way the social justice people did before them and tearing it down so they can insert their own message.
Or they're just looking at it through their 40K fandom lens, which case,
either they're malicious or they're retards.
Well, considering the fact they can't even get the basics of the Marian reforms right,
then they're retards. Then.
Well, if you want to know why, I'll make this quick. You want to know why the Roman Empire fell? Why the Roman Republic fell?
The Ice Age?
Because Romans were too busy killing each other than managing the empire. Civil war is what killed both governments. Because what was going on while the Romans were killing Romans? Because they wanted to decide who was going to be king shit of the whole thing. The barbarians come over the wall and they ravage, they pillage, and they destroy.
Yep.
So that was painful.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
So Tracer, how do you feel now that you still don't know what a Kingdom Hearts is?
I'm gonna take the Kingdom Hearts over this crap.
Okay, good news then. We'll keep in touch. We'll tell you when we're actually going to do that.
Look, because here's the thing. At least Kingdom Hearts, even if I do deridingly call it company-sanctioned fan fiction.
I mean, it is. Even the most hardcore Kingdom Hearts fan will admit that.
Even then,
no.
I can tell heart and soul put into it. I can respect that.
Yes.
All right.
We can do it next month.
All
next
right.
month is April, right?
Yeah, I was thinking April 1st or maybe Good Friday, or if not April, then the next time we have like a fight. The main reason I did this is because I hate months that have I am now on a schedule that I make 4 videos per month. So there's no video going to come out on Monday.
Koopa, the best time to do the Kingdom Hearts stream would be the week of the 13th of April, because I'm off that week.
We could do that. Wait, the what of April, Squish? The what of April?
The 13th
of April.
The 13th. God damn it! I'm not good at that one.
Video next Monday. Good night.